Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Beat the Odds. This is a cold weather episode, bro. Because I feel like we both in some cold locations right now. You back in the Detroit area, Michigan area, probably what, Farmington Hills or so.
Farmington Hills right now, yeah.
Farmington Hills. I'm in Chicago. I don't know what the weather is right now there, but here, bro, it's 20, but it feel like 10 or 5. Like that
Yeah,
wind. You know,
okay,
Chicago
okay.
known to be the windy city. It's windy as
Oh,
hell here
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yesterday it was much worse. There was snow on the ground and everything like that. 'Cause I came back on Friday. I flew in from San Francisco and came back in on Friday, and it was raining in San Francisco too. It was kinda, yeah, it feels good to be back in Michigan, kinda getting things going and, yeah, the wind is crazy. The wind is crazy, but it's nothing like that Chicago wind. I know the first time that I went, that was killing me. That was killing me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a beautiful city. Beautiful city.
It feels good being back here in Chicago. I haven't been here in a long time. As a quick aside, when we first moved to the Bay Area, did we fly out of Chicago? Do you remember that? Did we Were you there, or did we fly together out there, or did we
Mm,
fly separate?
we flew together, I think. I didn't even realize we might have had a connecting flight. You're saying, man,
I
that
feel like
was
we
so
flew out of
long ago.
Chicago. It was so long ago, but nevertheless, I always have deep roots here. So yeah, I drove down to Chicago from Detroit this past weekend, and it just made me. It really made me miss being in such a lively, energetic city. Like Houston is
Yeah.
definitely energetic, but it's a
Mhm.
different type of energy.
Different, yeah.
I think that I don't. I'm sure you can relate. Just in the Midwest in general, and
Mhm.
everybody says this outside the Midwest, but when you're in the Midwest, you may take it for granted. There's a
Mhm.
different hustle that we have in the
Yeah, for
Midwest. There's a
sure.
different
For sure.
energy that we
Yeah.
have. There's a different sense of urgency we
Yeah.
have in the Midwest, and so just being out here in this energy, even though it's cold outside, has been really good.
I think I started to understand why people always just described us as having grit. Before you even step outside, you gotta brace yourself for, like, what you're about to go into, like and if you don't, you'll feel depressed because 'cause you're just gonna be, like you're gonna be avoiding, you're gonna be like, "I don't wanna go out there, I don't wanna shovel the snow, I don't wanna scrape the windows, I don't wanna do any of that stuff," but when you get up and get active, get moving, yeah, we just have that attitude, and I think that carries off to different, places that we go to, but yeah, so excited to be on this episode. We got a handful of things. I really don't even know actually, you know what? How about you start with, why one of the things that brought you to Chicago?
Yeah, for sure. So as I discussed on our comeback episode, for those who listen for the first time, I most recently started acquiring businesses, and so I closed on my first business acquisition in December of last year. And immediately, like literally, like not even a couple of days after signing the closing papers, I started thinking about the next acquisition. Because in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, one is cool, but I need to like diversify just in case something happens. I
Keep
don't
it
know. Maybe it's
going.
my own trauma, PTSD. I'm like, I just need to like keep building because I'm like, I don't know what could happen. You know what I'm saying? So I'm already thinking on to the next one. I can't even celebrate the first win. So I immediately started thinking about, okay, well, what area do I want to go in next? Being from the Midwest, being from Detroit, I've always had a little bit of an interest and a little bit of exposure to manufacturing, right? We grew up in the automotive capital of the world. I don't even think most
Definitely.
people realize how big manufacturing is in Michigan, not just from the major big automakers, but all their suppliers are in Detroit as well. And so it's an entire ecosystem of factories and production there, as well as all throughout the Midwest. So Chicago, Indiana, and Ohio. And so I came down to Chicago because I have a good friend of mine who's a senior production manager for a chemical factory. And I just hit him up one day and was like, yo, I never toured a factory. I'm looking at buying one, but I want to first like tour one, like learn the business. So I'm just going to probably spend the next 6 months to a year just learning. And so he was kind enough to be like, yo, come on down to Chicago. I'll give you a tour of my facility. And I was pretty blown away, to be honest. So it was a pretty big facility, about 7 acres of land, multiple buildings, and literally they are a specialty chemicals company. It's a privately owned company ran by a family here in Chicago, and they focus specifically on chemicals to prevent corrosion and rust, which is an industry that, again, I wouldn't really think about as being that big, but it's big. Big,
Yeah.
big, big. And so, yeah, it was just fascinating to just kind of see the behind the scenes of how everything comes together, from the raw materials to the production to the research to the quality assurance to the distribution, even to like the financial side of the business. And so, again, I know we're from tech. And so, we often lean towards tech businesses. And again, this is my first entry point into something just like a physical, tangible product outside of software. And so this is fascinating to me to kind of see the behind the scenes and then realizing like how big these businesses can be. Sometimes like you're driving and you see like a little facility and you're like, oh, I wonder what's in there. Not
Right,
realizing that one facility might be doing $1 billion in revenue, or it might be doing $500 million in revenue, like something crazy.
right.
It really puts in perspective, just how much value is in the physical world and beyond just software. So yeah, I'm super excited to just kind of go on this journey. I have no idea how long it's going to take. I have no idea what type of factory I'll end up acquiring. This one happened to be chemical, but there's an entire, different categories that are interesting to me. So I'm gonna keep exploring, keep learning. As I see more, learn more, I'll definitely be sharing. But yeah, this space is really, really interesting. And again, in the Midwest, it's a significant opportunity. So yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of diving more into it.
Was it like a commercial factory neighborhood where, like, there was, like, multiple factories nearby, or was it just
Yeah, yeah, kind of like I would say like an industrial park is what they kind of call it. Where you
Yes.
have like a bunch of
Yeah.
several acres. You know what I'm saying? Of like different factories,
Right.
warehouses, all type of different, shit. I think it was like a FedEx facility near us as well, like right behind the building. So yeah, yeah, definitely a lot of industrial stuff.
Those places can be kinda interesting because it's like everything kinda changes up. The places look a little bit different when they have all those,
Hmm.
like, different built like, there are these huge buildings, they're not the typical buildings that you normally would see, but okay, and then so you're gonna be spending the next few months learning about this stuff.
That's the plan, man. It takes a long time to find a good deal. And so it's just going to be a matter of me like learning, first of all, how to even spot a good deal when looking at a manufacturing business. So first I got to learn the manufacturing business. I got to learn like, what does it mean to be a good manufacturer? What does that look like? And then too, like I'm assembling a team on this one. So like I already have identified like the person who I would hire as a CEO to kind of run the business, which is most important because that's not my background. My role is to really kind of facilitate, which has kind of always been my whole career. Like even as a product manager, like that was my role, right? To facilitate. So I think that's what I'm really good at. So right now is learning and then yeah, I'll be facilitating, hopefully getting this across the line. And it's gonna feel so good to get this first one done, bro. Like I really just can't wait to get it done.
I'm excited to see how this unfolds. You're in a interesting category, factories, manufacturing, very interesting category. In fact, it's something that has came up a lot in tech spaces, even though tech is mostly usually focused around the software, as you mentioned, maybe for even the last like 15, 20 years, software has dominated everything, mostly because of the margins on software being so cheap. And for me, I've had some experience, not like actually being like actually doing like working in the factories, but fun fact actually, before I joined my first salaried position, I had an interview at GM to work on the line. And I got an offer a week before I was supposed to, like, go to, like, the first day, and so, of course, I took my software offer. I can't even believe I was considering working at GM back then, but I thought I wanted a job, I wanted money, I know how to
It
code,
would
but I
have been
didn't
good
know.
money. It probably would have been good money. Those are solid jobs back in the day for sure. I mean, even now
Honestly,
still.
it would've been the same. I think the salary would've ended up being around the same. Maybe software gave me a few extra dollars an hour, but it would've been around the same, but the trajectory just been way different. That's
For
the only
sure.
thing. Like, the money would've started off pretty much the same, and then I've worked with these products, like, interesting enough, sometimes I end up at these companies where they have, a physical device and they have some type of manufacturing, but the only company that I ever went to that I actually went to the manufacturing place was Bird. That was
Well, how was
interesting.
that? Yeah, about to say, how was that? This was a factory where they were manufacturing the
Yeah.
scooters?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it was very interesting, but I will say, though, it wasn't, like, super, like, manufactured because we did buy the scooters already made, so it wasn't like we were building them from full scratch, but it was like we were building them, and then, there was extra work that you had to do, like, we had to put, like, our logos and then put our own flash them, put our own software on them, etcetera, and they'd just be, like, these warehouses full of them, and we would, like, customize them and put the firmware and whatnot visit, we would visit, a few times a year. And
Mhm, mhm.
that was always really cool to see that because, you normally you see the product, but you never see the behind the scenes. Manufacturing um, has been an interesting speaking of, like actually, speaking of just, like, hardware, though, there's some hardware around the country that I brought up to you before this call, Flock, the security company. The company, for those that don't know, Flock is this I think they're still a startup, maybe, like, they've been around for maybe 8 years,
Yeah,
maybe?
yeah, they've been around for a little
And,
bit.
yeah, they've been around for a while, startup still growing. But essentially, Flock is this company that has this high level security software, cameras basically, and other like hardware that makes it so that they can install these in neighborhoods. And I first saw them in like wealthy neighborhoods, neighborhoods where houses are upwards of $1 million, $5 million, etc. And they put these like stands and and they're all over the neighborhood, and they kinda blend in, you don't fully notice them that much, but they notice you. They're tracking everything. They're watching you, they can see everything. There's no kind of, like, privacy. But the reason why we're bringing them up is not because they're a cool startup, even though I do like that startup. It's because people around the country have been destroying these cameras in these neighborhoods, and that just I feel like that was an interesting thing to kind of break down a little bit because there's so much going on with surveillance, the idea of surveillance. There's so much going on with the idea of AI. There's so much going on with just tech in general that is almost like peop there's like 30% of people that like tech, but then the majority, the 70% are not feeling the happiest about tech. What do you think is going on there?
So that's interesting because I think in Houston, we've been experiencing a similar problem with people kind of messing with the flock cameras. When you brought up earlier, I did a quick search. There's like 3,000, at least just in Houston alone, there's 3,000 license plate readers that are supposedly operated by Flock, right? That's just on the license plate reader side. I presume they make other software
Yeah,
products besides just license plate readers, right?
for
Like
sure.
that's probably just one product line, right? So just to give the audience a sense of scale, that's only in Houston, right? 3,000 cameras. So that's already a lot, right? I think there's a couple things here. The first thing is I think the average person is starting to realize it now, but I think we understood this the moment we got into tech, which is that mass surveillance has already been happening for a very long time in technology. And when I say
Yeah,
mass surveillance, I don't necessarily just mean from the government side because we know that's happening, which is a completely separate black box that, Edward Snowden kind of gave American
yeah,
citizens
he
a
did.
preview. But in the private sector, customer data has always been harvested and used internally and tracked and analyzed and reviewed for the purposes of improving the product, right? You and I have both worked on product teams, and you and I both can attest to just how much teams can fight internally for access to that data, right? The need for
And
that data, the reason for that data, right? In order to improve the product, in order to provide the actual value that you are selling to the end customer, right? They're selling this to cities, and so they have to have that information. They have to like it's a cycle, right? And so we understand that, but I think the average person is starting to see like, oh, okay, when I do sign up for these services and I sign the privacy policy, my information is collected, right? My information is being shared. My information is being used. And people are shocked by that. And for me, and I don't know how you feel about it, but for me, I don't understand why people are shocked. But maybe it's because we worked in tech so much, it's become second nature to us, right? Like
yeah,
I remember working on privacy policies, right? Or terms
yeah.
of service policies at many different companies where I worked at, right? And so, like, I remember I understood what those terms of service meant, right? I understood that we as a product team made sure to include terms of service context in the terms of service so that we can collect certain data because we needed that data in order to make the product better, right? And if you're signing
Yeah.
up for a service, you just click the, yeah, I agree, and you don't think about that, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know, man. I think it's one of those things, but I think in America too, I don't know how that's going to turn out because Americans don't like surveillance. And if the people don't want it, fortunately, we do live in a country where people don't want something and enough people don't want it and they're loud enough about not wanting it, then it doesn't happen and it gets reversed. And so I think if enough people come out and stand up against it beyond just breaking the devices, then I think we might see a switch in terms of the level of surveillance in some of these major cities, like Houston, where you got 3,000 license plate reader cameras.
I can see that. I can see that. I think you're right about the us kind of being desensitized because we have been informed for years and we've been introduced to these concepts and maybe a more impressionable age where it's kind of like we just understand it, we were told it. And then, like you said, in some cases, you're actually setting up the policies for how you're going to, use user information or customer information. And I think that this kind of does go into a wider thing about, privacy that I'm curious to see unfold. I really don't know how people are going to react to all this stuff because there's multiple angles here. You might rebel against Flock because you feel like there's creating surveillance in a city or a state, reading people's license plates and all these different things. But then what happens when you realize, the Waymo can do the same thing? What happens when you realize that, ring cameras, your personal ring camera is good for you, but if 10, 15 people in your neighborhood have one because they all want to protect themselves, then to that company, that's a full insight into what's going on. And add on Google Nest and et cetera, and they almost have this live feed of almost everywhere in the country. And it doesn't seem that way when you buy your Google Home or your Amazon Ring or, even the flock doesn't seem on an individual or even a neighborhood basis that is that serious. But when you have a company that owns all of that, it's like you could imagine some random guy in the company clicking a button and then peeking into a neighborhood, peeking into an apartment building that has a bunch of these cameras. And but the thing is, I don't want to always just focus on the negative because these products do provide good things. It's a good thing that you can see who's at your door. Ring cameras have been notorious for catching a lot of different crime. They've been notorious for helping people be safe, knowing who's at the door or if something got stolen, etc. These products have been helpful. So, I don't like to demonize them. And at the same time, that angle between security and being washed over has always been tricky. It's always been tricky. It's always been tricky. So I understand where people are coming from. I think people shouldn't do that. I think reality though is in tech is that people are always destroying new tech. When I worked at Bird, they would destroy birds because they had some reason to do that. Waymos, they do the same thing, destroying Waymos, et cetera. I think sometimes that there are people that care about some of these issues. Like some people cared about birds being in neighborhoods. Some people care about Waymos replacing jobs. Some people care about flock cameras creating surveillance. And then some people are just upset and angry. Some
Hmm.
people are
Yeah.
just upset and angry and not happy with life. And we gotta figure that part out, because I feel like not even I feel like, I think that that is one of the biggest things that I see going on is that people just be, like, not feeling the best, not feeling right. There could be a million reasons why. It could be lack of opportunities, it could be social media addiction, screen addictions, it could be, just bad food that's in our environment, polluted air, it could be all these different things, or it could just be a personal problem, whatever, but, when I see somebody just walk and kick over a bird, I don't think that there's some activist that's against, bird scooters and lime scooters or whatever. I think this guy had a bad day. Like this guy probably had a bad day or this girl had a bad day. And so, but I think though, the issue though is that people are going to rationalize. So you almost never fully know if people actually care. Cause you can always say, we don't like surveillance, so we're fighting against surveillance. We don't like tech, but we're fighting against tech. But then, okay, what is tech to you guys? You don't like tech, but you're using your smartphone. You don't like tech, and it's like, okay, we're forced to use it. So then, okay, so then is it that people are rejecting the idea of not having agency? And look, this is not the podcast to go down this rabbit hole, but as you can see, there's a lot that I think that's in all this.
In an ideal world, I don't know if this would ever be a thing, right? Because it seemed like we're moving more towards how China operates, right? Like, I
Hmm.
mean, I think they developed the playbook on mass surveillance at scale successfully.
Hmm.
They track everything over there. I mean, I think it's an engineering marvel, to be honest, what they've been able to do. So I think the US is kind of taking some similar steps, a little bit more, it's a little bit more fragmented here because of just how our systems work, but it starts to look similar at a macro level. But I wonder though, is in the future, if there's a way to be anonymous in society, right? Like, I'm just playing this out theoretically, right? Like, it'd be nice to be able to, even if you have to pay, right? Like, I feel like if you wanna be anonymous, should you not be able to just kinda be anonymous? You know what I'm saying? Not be tracked by anything? You know, I don't know what that would look like in an ideal world, but I feel like that'd be a nice little, even if it's like for a temporary amount of time. You know what I'm saying? Like almost like a video game. You know how video games be where you put the cheat code in and it
Yeah.
only lasts for like 15 minutes or 20 minutes or
Mhm.
whatever. So you can do
Mhm.
whatever how you want for that. But then once it expires, you know, you back to normal.
Mhm.
But I don't know. It'd be nice to have a shield, I feel like, in society from surveillance, like a surveillance shield almost.
It would be nice. I just don't see how. You just don't see how, especially us millennials who have been, like, onboarded into the first versions of this huge matrix that has been created and is currently being created. Millennials, Gen Z, like, the generations below that, I don't see how they could I don't see how, and I don't see how. I don't see how. I really don't see how. I don't see how.
Yeah. It's probably not possible unless you like a famous person or a secret spy like a Jeffrey Epstein or some shit. It seemed like some of the which we're
Yeah,
gonna talk about, but it seemed like
we
some
are
of the
gonna
people
talk
caught
about
up caught up in that situation, somehow they've been able to get, stay anonymous.
well, I think that's because what I see in that, and we can talk about it, we definitely can talk about it. We've seen it. We've all seen it, and
Yeah.
we haven't
You
really
can't
enj
ignore it.
like but yeah, we've said a couple comments, but we haven't really, we just haven't really, actually, just said, "Hey, look, we're gonna talk about it." And so, this is what I see. I believe that we once lived in a world where stories ran everything. We still live in a world where stories are still primarily dominant, but they're losing their dominance, and here's what I mean by that. There were structures created, and people were put into the structures, but everybody didn't have to operate within those structures. So, for example, if you're Epstein, you can, as long as you can control the narrative and the story, then it's almost as if it's not happening. These are similar behaviors that you see with, people who are running high level, basically manipulation, where they have one image that people know them for, in his case, finance, but then has a whole nother dark side image, not even an image, maybe that's who he actually was, pulling all these strings, and then not only that, just knowing things about people that most of us wouldn't be able to accept. Like, for example, in order for you to even set that up, you have to know there's a market for that. You have to know that people want to buy into that. You have to know that, you have to be willing to test people and see if that's what they're interested in. It's just a whole different, it's kinda uneasy. It's a little bit of uneasy. I think those things happen. I think they're harder to do now, at least that's my assumption, because there's so many footprints everywhere. There's so many pictures that have been caught. There's so many, your phones are tracking us. There's emails, etc. Like, you look at a lot of Epstein files, you can tell they did not think that those would ever come out. This is probably when email first came out. These people were probably early adopters, moving fast, moving quickly, all I guess in a way, kind of like these people who were gonna be rich and wealthy because 'cause they're on email early before most people, but they're like no filter. They're just saying whatever, and I find that to be the most interesting, one of the most strangest things.
Yeah. Yeah, the conversations via email were definitely interesting. You could tell it was open and free. They clearly didn't think they would ever be seen, right? Or
Exactly.
be surveyed, right? And I guess you got to go back to that time. Man, it's interesting. I don't know. I think that this is one of those things in the simulator that everybody stops and scratches their head and be like, "What's going on here?" Like
Right.
whatever is being told to us is clearly misaligned from what we see. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And clearly, what we see here is that this is some higher level thing where clearly there's governments involved in this. You have high up political figures involved in this. You have corporate executives involved in this. You have, philanthropies involved in this. You pretty much have everybody involved in this. And so the question that I have is, one, why build such a sophisticated level or layers of manipulation like that? And two, who's ultimately behind this, right? Because I don't necessarily think this is just a matter of Jeffrey Epstein deciding that he is going to essentially be the world's pimp. Essentially, that's basically what he decided he wanted to be, right?
Mhm.
I don't think it's just that simple, right? Like, I think it's definitely some more complexity to how that whole thing was orchestrated, or whether it's government sponsored, right? Because I think there's questions about his wealth. I think there's questions about some of the money that he was paid for some of the services he provided. For example, I know he was working with one of the founders of, at least this came out in the documents. This is not my opinion. This is what's in the docs. And he was providing tax savings, tax planning services, or estate planning services, rather, and he was paid like $175 million, right? And they had other tax experts that were like, that's a large amount, right, for that particular service. So clearly there's some money laundering here. He was also claimed to have been involved in Bitcoin early on, which we know
I saw
that
that, yeah.
the people who were involved in Bitcoin early on, you
2011, I
know,
think, is when he
yeah,
was getting in there. That's extremely it was probably a dollar,
very early.
maybe even less than a dollar, but yes.
For sure. Very early. So I don't know, man. There's some questionable things here. Ultimately, this is just my opinion. I think this is a state sponsored spy who essentially was put in place to basically create a manipulation program platform, right? Um, and it's the oldest trick in the book, right? Unfortunately, men always fall subject to sex. It's just the oldest, it's the oldest trick in the book, unfortunately. And when you add the context of kids being involved, that just makes it 10 times nasty. I think the thing that I am most shocked about, though, and I will say, is how accepting it appears to be that our political leaders or the world seems to be to child sexual predators. You would think with something at this magnitude would cause like things to kind of slow down for a second and really take a look at what's really happening here. This is beyond just, you know, prostitution. This is beyond just money laundering. This is beyond that. This is a systematic, industrialized child sex ring, essentially. And you would think there would be more upset about that itself. And maybe there is, and maybe I'm just not seeing the headlines around that or seeing the conversations around that. But that seems pretty scary to me that that's not being like emphasized.
I think one of the reasons why it's not being emphasized as much, even though it is luckily been one of those topics that has been consistently brought back into that people are trying to keep bringing it back into relevancies, is not people are not letting it go. But I think part of it is that distraction. I really just think distraction at an all-time high. I think this is the most distracted population in history. I think that focus is low. I think that attention, control of attention is low. In fact, there was a viral tweet by the ball that went viral just like earlier today. I don't even know why it was controversial, but essentially he was just saying, let me just pull it up real quick. He was just saying, if you do not direct your attention, it will be directed for you. And so yes, 100%. He's right. I don't even know why that was even controversial at all because it's simply the world that we live in. If you wake up and you open your phone, guess who, like if you don't control your intent, like guess who dictated where your attention went to? It's either Facebook, Twitter, etc. They decided what was going to be in your first few thoughts. And this is why it's important to have these different habits. I'm not going to go all into that because this is not a lecture. But what I will say is, as far as in regards to the Epstein stuff and why we might not be seeing a lot of, as much anger around it or as much actual action behind it is because I don't think people feel that empowered. I think they feel sluggish. I think they feel slow. I think they feel, you know, like, why try? What does it matter? What's going to happen? It's kind of this thing where I don't think people think that they can do anything. And I don't blame them for that because I don't blame them for that, even though maybe it's not true in numbers. But I can see how people might feel hopeless. It's like if you grew up in a dysfunctional family and your parents had dysfunctional habits and whether they were predatory or something just something not good, the kid would learn helplessness unless you could somehow get help from somewhere. You would learn this level of helplessness and I think that's kind of what we're seeing is this learned helplessness thing where people get into the habit of, I can't do anything about it. I can't change my life. I can't, those people are doing these things to me. They're doing these things to us, but we just got to take it basically. And I think there is a line. At some point, there is a line, but unfortunately, that may not be the line. That may not be the line, unfortunately.
It's a good point. How do you think this plays out? Do you think there are going to be some further prosecution of executives, politicians, leaders? Do you think there will be any accountability?
Well, we see that Prince Andrews in the UK was, I believe he was arrested, and there's a deeper investigation. I don't know that it's specifically for Epstein, even though that's probably one of the reasons why they're, drilling down on him. I think it's probably a financial crime he's done. I think part of the problem is that it's a lot of hearsay going on. That makes it tricky, when there's just hearsay. And then also another part that I've been hearing is that for some, not all, but for some of these women who were young girls at the time, some of them, they started participating in these crimes, and they started getting other people and doing certain things, et cetera, et cetera. And that creates a whole nother can of worms because it's like, you know, it's understandable that if they were put in these positions and they were kids and they were conditioned, they were groomed, and they were doing all these messed up things, how their worldview would have been, which would enable them to move and do all these things to other young girls and other women, etc. At the same time, it kind of creates a scenario where you may or may not be able to admit that you were doing these things. And so now you're not just protecting the predators, you're kind of protecting yourself too, because you're like, you have your own guilty conscience in a way. And that's a tricky one. 'Cause that's a real tricky one. That's just real tricky. I don't have the answers on that. I don't even, I barely want to speak on it because I'm like, I still don't know how you, that's the tricky one. Like, so then there are some powerful people who are being protected by the victims themselves because those victims have victimized other people or help facilitate the victimization of other people. And so it's difficult to some extent to know where the accountability falls on. But I do think that the men that knew, if they can be, if it can be shown in the files, I think it should be clear. Like I think Prince Andrews, I think there may have been some videos, is what I heard. I don't know to what extent. But yeah, this does call into question a lot of things because it does seem to be that there's so much power in these files that clearly they can't all come out for whatever reason. And so maybe it's a case of mutually assured destruction where, you know, I know your secrets, you know my secrets, so we just might as well just say nothing.
Hmm.
We might as well just keep it pushing.
It's a very elaborate scheme. Like that's what I'm like. I mean, if Jeffrey Epstein did do this, is like, man, this is a crazy blackmail scheme. It seems nuts. Like that you would be able to get
Creepy. Yeah. It's
so
creepy.
many, man, it's just like, damn, these people are like leading our
Among Us.
countries. Yeah, just like the elite. It makes you wonder, like, man, they do some crazy shit. And this is the stuff we know about, right? It makes you wonder, a question, at least for me, is like, who's the other Jeffrey Epstein, right? Like
Right.
whoever set this scheme up, that they bet all eggs on one basket? Like, I don't think so. Maybe.
I think that this goes back to something I mentioned on the comeback episode a couple weeks ago, which is, and it might be a hot take to somebody, but I think if people knew what I knew, I think it wouldn't be trust no one. Like, I mean, it's not personal. It's not personal. Trust no one. Don't trust no one. And part of it is because it's beyond character. It's beyond who you think the person is. Just off the simple fact that people can believe that they can believe the way that people view themselves, including myself, etc. People often don't see what they do. And especially if you add on levels of, over time, a mental decline where people don't even know that they declined, or, or maybe they were born with something, or, it's not like someone can say, "Hey, I was born with this condition." So sometimes I don't always think straight. Sometimes I don't always, like trust no one, always, verify, but not in a way of like, for example, breaking into somebody's phone or breaking into, opening somebody's notebook. Those are breaches. I don't believe in that, but I'm saying actions. And I think that not to say we could have prevented this, but I think that the idea we can trust, you know, anybody on any scale should never have really been there, even though we would love to believe that we could. And I think there's another thing that I want to say about that, which is that this. before we move on to the next topic, 'cause the next topic is a little bit lighter, but I would say that the show To Catch a Predator is a really eye-opening show where, they set up and go on these random sites. I don't even know which sites. They pretend to be, older, like a 18-year-old or 19-year-old, whatever the case, older woman. And then in the conversation with these men, they tell these men, hey, sometimes they're like, hey, I'm 12, I'm 14, I'm 13, etc. Sometimes they're like, hey, look, I'm the mom of two young kids. Like, do you want to come over? And these people agree to it. These people, they agree. Like they agree, and this is from all walks of life. Some of these people have a lot of money. Some people are influential. Some people don't have much. Some people are repeat offenders, etc. And just watching this show, and I don't watch at least 50 episodes. Every one of them denies it. Like the proof is literally undeniable. Every single person denies it. Like 100% denies it, and can never own up to why they did it, what made them do it. They never say why. They never, I maybe seen two people that said, look, maybe I might have an issue. Maybe two people. Everybody else, it never happened. I didn't do it. Obviously they did it because they're there and they read the messages. They are on call sometimes, you know, and it's like, so that begs the question, what does accountability look like? In those cases, they get hit with charges. But that's really the only way is to catch people in. When people are doing things this crazy, the only way is to have evidence. Like, and I
Mm.
think that's the struggle with what we see is that the evidence is the evidence. It was a time where people were just, I don't know, it gives me a odd feeling. It's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling, but I'm happy though that we are seeing the truth though. I would rather see the truth of how things are than to pretend that the world was another way. So, because at least we now have the opportunity at some point now or in the future to make changes and hopefully, create a different environment for the future.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah. Totally agree with that, man. Well, cool. Let's shift gears. Where you want to go next?
Look, I think this is what I've been itching to talk about. Brylan's not here. Normally, Brylan would be the person that would go back and forth with me on this, and he would, say his piece or whatever he would say. Basically, for those listeners, we're talking about Anthropic here, or Claude, the makers of Claude, the consumer app on the App Store or Cloud Code, whatever is your product that you like to use. So Anthropic comes on X or Twitter, and I'm just gonna read it. We've identified industrial scale distillation attacks on our models by DeepSeek, Moonshot AI, and Minimax. These labs created over 24,000 fraudulent accounts and generated over 16 million exchanges with Claude, extracting its capabilities to train and improve their models. So you guys might be wondering, like, first of all, like, what is distillation? Well, distillation is essentially a method in which case a company or anybody who's trying to create their own model, they will pay for a subscription or APIs, OpenAI or Claude. These APIs give them access to the models that OpenAI and Anthropic have spent billions of dollars to train, and they'll send off responses to get. Actually, they'll send off messages to get responses, and they'll do that over and over again, back and forth. And it's a method that allows them to train their own model without having to do the high intensity, expensive training that these companies have to do upfront. And what not OpenAI, I'll read the second tweet, and this is why I'm going to have to say something about this. So the second tweet says distillation can be legitimate. AI labs use it to create smaller, cheaper models for their customers. But foreign labs that illicitly distill American models can remove safeguards, feeding model capabilities into their own military, intelligence, and surveillance systems. Okay. So essentially, what they're trying to say is that distillation is a useful technique. We're not mad about that. It's technology, it's a technique that works. It's cheaper. That's why people are always going to do it. And then they do the same thing they love to do, which is that they're trying to make this about safety. They're trying to make this about there's these foreign labs that are using our models to remove our safeguards and using it to train their militaries, intelligence, and surveillance systems, etc. And this is just such an anthropic move. Like, this is just such an anthropic move. The number one thing I would say is this, is that Anthropic, OpenAI, Gemini, etc., never once asked for anybody's permission to use all the data that has created all these models. In
Mhm.
fact, many times they have been sued for people trying to get back at least something for them gathering all the data on the internet, on YouTube, Reddit, all these different places. Maybe even Gemini might have, taken our emails. Maybe they anonymized them, but they took our emails, maybe, and all this data. And now you want everybody to care about people stealing data from you. And because you are the safety company that cares about safety, conveniently, safety also benefits your pockets in this case. In this case, it's not that you're mad that they are training their models at a fraction of the cost. You're not mad about that. You're claiming you're not mad about that. You're mad about the fact that they're using these models and removing the guardrails. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. Like, when are people going to see through Dario? Like, he may have started with good intentions. He may have, I will give him that. I'm not saying he is a bad guy. I'm not saying he's a bad person. I'm not saying he's malicious. In fact, I believe most of these guys started off with good intentions, including Sam.
Mm.
Maybe not Elon. Elon, I think Grok was started out of spite. Uh, Maybe when he was at OpenAI, it was a little bit more, but I think
Yeah.
Grok wasn't started with good intentions. It was to crush
Yeah.
Sam. So what, like, do you believe this guy? I'm just saying, like, that's just my opinion. Like, and I got more to say. I love to see what people say because I've had this at dinner tables. I had a dinner for my job, and this was brought up, not this specific post, but just Anthropic, because they're positioned as the company that cares, the company that is about safety, but they're playing a
Well,
dangerous game.
well, let's take a step back, right? Because I think we talked earlier about like flock. We started talking about flock safety, right? And
Mhm.
the backlash from communities because they felt like they were being surveillance, right? So of course that's going to create some backlash, right? I think what Anthropic is doing, which is a logical step from a business standpoint, is getting ahead of that because I think he knows, just like we often talk about, where this AI, where this technology has the potential to go. Whether it gets there, when it gets there, how long it takes to get there, none of us can ever call that, right? But we all deeply believe that we are going to a place that we're never going back to before, with agents, with intelligence, with super intelligence, with robots, with self-driving cars, with shit factories and space. We're going there, right? On the health side with drug discovery, we're simply going to that place. And I think going there, there's going to be a lot of people who are upset. Whether they're upset because again, they're being feel like they're surveillance, right? Whether they upset because they feel like their jobs are being taken, right? And now, the job they used to do is no longer available, right? If you're an Uber driver, right? Waymo might be coming in. So they're gonna be upset. And so I think what he is doing is exactly the same playbook that Apple did, which I mean, you could say it worked for them, right? And there's other examples of companies doing that, which is trying to create a brand that is clean, clear in terms of what you stand for and what you don't stand for, right? And now, whether or not you live up to that execution wise is a whole different thing when you talk about that, right? And I think that's where your gripe seems to be coming from is like what they're saying versus what they're doing. But I think strategically, what he's doing makes a lot of sense because most people like you are not going to peel behind the curtain. Now, I do what you agree with you on the dangerous game, but it's no different than what Apple does, right? Apple will sit here and talk about the privacy business, but they do the same thing we talked about, which is they take customer data and they use it to in their product to help make other products or to use it to corner certain companies out of certain markets by launching a competitor. It's the same game, right? Just it just looks a little bit different, right? And so I think he's just rolling. My hunch is he's rolling with that playbook. But again, I don't follow him as much, so I don't see and listen to everything he says. I try to honestly, I block out a lot of the things that a lot of these AI CEOs are saying. Even Sam, like I can't stand his voice. I don't even listen to his interviews anymore. So I really don't know exactly what he'd be saying, but I do know they try to stand for privacy. It seems like they have a cleaner brand, and even from me just using the product, I just started really using Claude. I mean, you know this. I've been on OpenAI, bear bull on OpenAI since the beginning. And I'm still really bullish on it. I paid a $200 a month and have been paying that shit for over a year. So I love OpenAI, but I recently started switching to Claude, and I like that product as well. So again, I'm not as familiar with what he be saying, but I can get from my experience with using a product that they're trying to take a certain market position. This seems to be a little bit different than OpenAI, a little bit different than Perplexity, a little bit different than Gemini, a little bit different than some of the other AI labs that I've seen. So that's my kind of like take from it. Whether or not it's real or not was bullshit. I don't know. It's probably all bullshit. It's marketing at the end of the day. Like you said, don't trust nobody. I don't trust any marketing. Like it has a job.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, I'm for the business. I understand 100%, from the business perspective. So we're in agreement there. This is a strategic move that, he's trying to get ahead of it. He's trying to position it in a certain way. He kind of sees where it's all going. So I do think that is a part of I do think that's what I see as well. I see that as
Mhm.
well. It's the best move you can make in his position. I think that's one of the best moves you can make in his position. Uh, but I think, though, he's not gonna be able to pull it off, and I think that Sam is making a more strategic move, which is he's just owning it and not addressing the stuff. He's addressing safety, but he's not trying to come off holier than thou. He's not trying to come off like morally superior than everybody. And I think that is probably what is internally making me feel some type of way about Anthropic, which is this trying to come off, even like this is tech drama where in the conference, guy wouldn't shake Sam's hand, or I don't know who didn't shake whose hand first, but from to my understanding, they didn't want to shake Sam's hand and stuff like that. And it just comes off as though that this guy is more focused on the image of everything and not the actuality. And out of all the big companies right now, I think who's going to really come out like unscathed will probably be Apple. Apple's getting a lot of flack for not being involved in the AI models, not being heavy into the AI models, being behind all that stuff, etcetera. But I think their focus is probably correct where they're focusing more on the Vision and the AR or the Vision Pros and then maybe the consumer level Vision glasses that are coming out. I think that's gonna and then I think that they actually might wait for models to become a lot more efficient and so that they can run these local models as opposed to running as much of these kind of like models in the cloud, et cetera. And they're taking a different approach. And I think Apple will not take as much brand damage as all the others. And so if you're Anthropic, yes, you have to do this. But well, I don't let me take that back. You don't have to, but I understand your choice to do it. I just don't think though that people are going to choose Claude because it's private or more safe or it has a constitution, it's a good AI, it's guardrails. I don't think people are going to choose models based on that. Like, like they're going to choose the model that they think work best for their use cases. And I don't think anybody actually cares about safety. And that's just what I'm seeing. I don't see that.
Well, let's double click that, right? Because in a world where performance is semi equal, right? Because I would argue that Claude models and OpenAI models are again, you can use whatever metric scale you want to kind of like pinpoint, the ratings on it. But I would argue that they're somewhat equal, right? Like, yes, you might say one has a better use case for this, and you might like it for that. But generally speaking, for everyday people, you can pretty much do the same on one that you can on the other, right? So in a world where the in output is somewhat semi similar, right? It's not much variance there. Then one, how else do you stand out to consumers, right? How else do you stand out to
Right.
people?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the whole conversation a year ago, or even beyond that, was that these models are commodities, right? At one point, there was this conversation that open source is going to kill these companies. There is no more open AI and Claude because open source and Llama and all this and that is coming along to the market, and they're going to kill these things. And that hasn't necessarily panned out to be true. But in
Mhm.
a world where these products are somewhat commoditized, and for the average person, the output is not that much different between the two, or three or four or five different things you have, then I think branding does start to become a factor in that. And so I do think, not based on where the world is today, I think he's looking further out where you have agents and you have all these autonomous systems. And in that world, I do think trust is going to become a big selling point. I do think privacy, I do think that is going to become important for some people, right? Especially again, when we talked about people pushing back on surveillance, people pushing back on big tech, Now, at some point, people have to simulate and they have to adopt this technology anyway, right? But adopting that technology doesn't necessarily mean those principles of wanting privacy, those principles of wanting security go away, right? If you're a person that cares about that stuff, you still care about that stuff, but you still want to use these products. And again, I'm arguing it from a marketing standpoint versus like an actual functioning happening thing, right? Again, Apple does it, but we don't really know what's happening on the back end, right? We don't really know if they're encrypting stuff. They say they are. We hope they are, but we don't really know. You know what I'm saying? There's no way to really like to prove it.
They've we can't read the we can't read the hardware and the software, but they've published, peer-reviewed papers on the cryptography that they've used. Most people are not privy to that because nobody's really looking into that stuff. But Apple has published, open source papers on the specific technology they use. Whether or not it's really implemented, yes, you cannot go in there and prove that. What I'm saying, there's still going to be a level of trust there. However, I would, if you have the documentation, which is extremely technical, nobody's gonna read it. I can see,
Yeah,
it
and
being
maybe
similar.
Apple is the one that is doing it right, right? But then you have other companies like WhatsApp, for example. I know they recently were getting
Mhm.
backlash because they
They
claimed that
lied.
WhatsApp
They
messages
lied.
were
They
encrypted end to
lied.
end.
They lied.
But that's my
Yeah,
point. That's my whole
yeah,
point, though. Is like maybe
yeah.
Apple is the one exception to the rule where maybe
Maybe.
they are living and breathing that brand ethos that they project in the world. Maybe they are, right? But we know that that's not the case with every company. And so that's my thing
No,
is
it's
where
not.
I still think that is important, right? I do
Yeah.
think those marketing messages are important. I think my man's is just getting ahead of it. But I don't know. Again, I think in a world where these products become commoditized, then, I mean, you kind of got to lean on something to kind of stand out to
Mhm.
some degree. I don't know if the privacy and security is the best way to go, but I think you got to have some way of kind of like standing out in a crowded arena.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. This is something that people have called safety as a moat. It is in the AI word, safety as a moat. And this is part of the reason why I just don't buy. I understand the pragmatic and the practical like strategy behind all of this. I'm saying though something very simple, which is that unless you're going to find a business model where you can run these highly intelligent models without you hosting the models. So in other words, local models, like your business is at your business is at odds with the claim. The most secure and private models are local models, period. This is the reason why when OpenClaw blew up for are one, they want lower prices, but they also want, the Kimmy model and models like that, because then their private information is so that show actually Claude tried to sue them because the names seem somewhat similar. So Claude even tried to step on that. So to me, they are showing us who they are if you pay close enough attention. They do not want true privacy and safety. They do not want that. They want to appear private and safe because that will be a strategic competitive advantage and it could potentially create a moat, but they don't actually want it because if they were to actually offer that, they don't know how to make money under that model. They like because if they had these local models, the question would be how do they actually make money? And I understand that because I once had a product where you have this core technology, it's free because it's actually the safest when it's free, but then it's hard to kind of make money off of it and I think what Apple does is that they just don't make money off the iMessage product. They just don't really make that much money off that product. They make money off a different product. So I think that is where they're able to do things that these other companies are not able to do. Cloud cannot afford not to make money off your conversations. Like
Yeah.
they have to. So
But let me ask
fundamentally,
you this though. it is privacy a because I've heard you talk about this before, right? Oftentimes security is looked at as a think about it like a system of layers, right? Or
mhm,
multiple layers, like a
yeah,
cake on
yeah,
a right?
mhm,
There's layers to security. And you often you kind of went back to the hardware issue being like if they want to be the most secure, then they have to kind of make local models, right? If that's like the
mhm,
extreme end of it.
mm,
But is there not steps in between there that Claude or OpenAI, Anthropic rather, have the ability to take advantage of to be more secure, not the most secure, right? Because I agree with you, the most secure would be local, or maybe there's even another level even beyond that, right? Maybe they aren't the most secure, but are there not other escalated steps that they can take to be more secure, even though they aren't necessarily at the end
Yeah,
where maybe Apple is, because Apple makes the hardware. So maybe they're
yeah.
in the best position to be the most secure, really. Like
You're
your
right,
point, maybe.
right. Like this is Apple is crazily positioned for like almost everything. It's
Absolutely.
just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. But the answer is yes. But what I would add on to it though is that you can't basically what consumers understand to be secure. I think consumers think like my issue is what I assume as consumers, because what they'll do is, yeah, it will be technically secure because it'll be HTTPS and there'll be these secure, calls and whatever, et cetera. And they will secure it to the level that they think is secure. And then they'll bury it somewhere in the policy where you don't see it, you don't read it, you don't know exactly. And then one day in the future, when they get hacked and all your personal details have come out, and just like how these emails came out with Epstein, et cetera, to me, that's the parallel. People are probably thinking that this AI thing is going to be just like how they thought email was 20 years ago, where you could just come on there, you could just say this and say that, and all your conversations are just happening in real time, et cetera. And there will be a moment in the future where or that information will probably come out. That information will probably come out in some way. And that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this. When that information comes out, then it's going to be a concern. So yeah, sure, it's going to be secure to the level of, to the reasonable standard from the position that the company is operating in. At the end of the day, the company has to survive. So I can't kill them on trying to survive, but I'm still going to come in and critique and say, hey, look, I see what you're doing here. You're playing this game where, and then also, but I don't think they just leave it like, for example, Apple didn't seem to try to be morally superior to Android. They just focus on privacy of the iPhone. You know, we can't read your messages, etc. They didn't seem like they were trying to be like, we're private and Android is like they didn't seem to be trying to make this moral sanctimonious type of angle. Whereas I don't like Claude. I love Claude as a product. I love Claude as a product. I've always said that. I love Claude as a product. I actually think it even sounds more human. It sounds more regular. ChatGPT is like these guys are like building this extremely robotic like AI where like you say stuff and it's like robotic and it sounds weird. Sounds like everybody like when you go to SF, it sounds like how people talk in SF, which is not like how everybody else talks in the rest of the country. You know what I'm saying? Like it just sounds weird. Like it's just like what like it's just annoying. It really actually is annoying. If it wasn't one of the best models, I wouldn't use it. But actually one of the best. It is a good product as well. But I'm just saying though, I see Anthropic going a little bit, okay, take that route, but then trying to be sanctimonious about it, I don't like that. I don't like this thing where it's like, okay, yeah, there's distillation. We don't care about that because they know that they can't say nothing about that. So they're like, okay, we're fine with distillation. No, they're not fine with that. Y'all are not fine with distillation. It threatens your business. You're not fine with it. You're not happy that you spent $1 billion training an AI model and somebody just ran, 10 million, $50 million to replicate the same model. You're not happy about that. So stop pretending that you're happy about that. Oh yeah, we're not mad about that. We're just mad about the safety. Shut up. Shut up. Do you think that you would not be mad about that, bro? Like, let's be honest here. If you spent $1 billion training a model, you wouldn't be
Yeah.
upset. And they trying to act
Yeah.
like, oh yeah,
No.
we're not mad about that. But we
No.
mad about safety. Shut up.
So the question I would have is, I mean, why didn't they stop it?
They couldn't because these guys they're better than us. That's what they're mad about. That's what they're mad about. They're mad. They are
So
gonna
they had
sit
no.
back,
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know, but I
answer,
I
bro.
agree. I mean, yeah,
Would you
of
be
course you'd be
mad?
mad about that.
Yeah.
Of course,
So
of
then, so
course.
then, so then you see my point about them like trying to act like you're not mad and then saying you care about the safety aspect of it because that's what you think people care about. You think people care about these safety concerns and you're trying to, you know how like somebody will act unbothered, but be like super bothered, if you could tell.
Yeah.
It's like that. It's like they're trying to act unbothered. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Just say you care.
like, I would care. I would care because you think the investors don't care. The investors don't pour all this money into the company, and then somebody replicates the model for $50 million. It begs the question: are we
Wow.
wasting our money?
Right. Is Anthropic the guy that started that company? Did he come from OpenAI?
He did. He did.
Okay. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay,
He thinks he's better
I
than
see.
Sam. Trust me. I promise you. He probably thought he started off
So
with good intentions. Probably.
they're working with vengeance almost. It seems like.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So you're seeing what I'm saying now.
I get it. I get it. They're working. They're taking the anti view. Whatever happened internally at OpenAI, they're like, yeah, we're gonna take a different view on it.
And in the end, guess what? They're gonna be the same. That's my prediction. In the end, they're gonna be the same. It's kind of like, you grow up, you think that you criticize the adults in the room, you think you're gonna be so much different than all the adults in the room, all the teachers, your parents, all the people that's running the government. You think you're gonna be the one. You're gonna come out, and when you get older, you're just about to be the greatest, flawless, perfect. You're gonna set up your whole life. You're gonna just do it flawless. You're gonna do everything. You're not gonna make no mistake. No, you're gonna be just like everybody else. I hate to break it to you. You're gonna be just like everybody else. Take back them childish dreams, them childish naive dreams. You're gonna be just like everybody else. That's my take. And I don't know if we have another topic, but like this anthropic thing, I'm gonna keep going on them. I hate to
Mm.
don't get me wrong though. I like what they're putting out there. I just don't think though that
So
they can
do you
stand it
think
on it.
do you think this is going to jeopardize their position, or what do you think is the impact of this? Do you think what happens to Claude? Because if they continue making a great product, which we both agree the product is great, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, it's undeniable.
unilaterally in the
Undeniable.
industry, everybody loves it. Like
Yeah,
it's no
undeniable.
question on the product side, right? So if they continue, let's just assume, let's play it out. Assume they continue to execute on that. Whatever the future of that industry continues to mold into, they continue to be in the top one, top two of that category. So if it's an agentic AI, they continue to lead there. If it's coding agents, they continue to lead there. They continue to kind of be one, two player. Do you think that the mismatch in messaging versus what they really feel and are doing, do you think this has any implications on slowing down the business? Or do you
No.
think it's just more of a moral dilemma internally?
They're well, I hear through the grapevine that a lot of these people do have they have a they feel that they don't feel the best. I'll just leave it at that. I hear through the grapevine that at these labs, including Anthropic, they don't feel the best. Some of them don't feel the best about the work they're doing. Too much money in it though, can't turn around. It's kind of like Facebook. You start doing all this, these fucked up things, and it's like, well, look, I'm gonna get 5, 10 million. So I hate to shoot. Like it is what it is. But I'll say this: I think my prediction is I'm on record. This is gonna be published and I'll be either right or wrong. Time will tell. I think time will tell in my favor. And I can't wait till the day I pull it back up.
Hmm.
But maybe one day I don't and I'm just dead ass wrong and I look crazy, I look dumb, I look whatever. I'm willing to I'll put it like this. They will break the trust that they're trying so hard to play right now. I think they will inevitably break the trust and it's going to go in a way that they don't anticipate. And I think that what may happen actually is that Sam might benefit by being cast as the villain because if things happen, he's already the villain. He's already don't trust him. He's already this. So actually, that's kind of giving him almost the freedom to just win, just to win. So I don't think that
Hmm.
Claude is going to have a problem with like growing, but I do think they will lose trust at some point in the future. And it's going to be very hard for them to get it back because people are going to buy into that and they're going to think that they have done everything they can. And fundamentally, it's just that they may have done everything they can, but it will still fall short of people's expectations, from my view. They will fall short of people's expectations. They arguably they have done everything they can because they don't have hardware, they don't have all the devices. So arguably they have done what they could, but I think it'll fall short of what they're trying to project. And the cost will be lower trust and I don't think it'll kill the business. I think they're going to exist for a long time. I just think that the trust factor is going to they're trying too hard, acting unbothered. They're trying too hard. They think they're better people than OpenAI. In my opinion, you don't have to play these games. You're currently not in AI. I'm currently not in AI. You don't have to ride these wealth games. You don't have to.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
there at OpenAI, they could have just elected to be outside of the game. They could have been like, this whole thing is going to turn into, let's just get out of this game. And so they thought they could probably, with good intentions, come in and maybe do something different in the game. And I think they're going to find out that it's not that simple. And this is not going to be that simple. It's going to be very hard and it's going to bother, I think it is going to bother them. I think it's going to bother them I think it's going to bother them because it's just not that simple. And that's the reason why Apple is sitting back and saying, okay, y'all go ahead and damage all that trust. We gonna
Hmm.
wait. We gonna
Hmm.
wait. And we gonna in the end, we're gonna have we're gonna win the next category, and we're just gonna take the models, and we don't even gotta spend nearly as much money to make them.
Man, I think that's a very clear prediction. I guess we got it on record, so we'll see. But I think
That's all record.
the smartest thing that Apple has, one of the smartest moves they made strategically was working on their own silicon. Like
Yes. I know.
when they made that move at the time, right? It was like we could see like, okay, maybe that makes sense, but it was kind of like
Yeah.
all right,
Shut
what?
they
Like okay,
know. Shut they know.
but the timing, bro, like the timing was perfect.
I don't know how they know these things because even like, okay, remember when I tried to run local models the first year, like 2023. And I realized I kind of got lucky because I had one of the Apple Silicon chips. So I was able to run local models. And, fast forward to now, and, with OpenClaw getting big and people going out and buying Mac Minis specifically because the chips are very efficient and very strong, have a lot of
Yes.
unified memory, which is useful for local models. It's like they're basically saying, look, we're not going to be the guys that make the models because we don't want that damage, but we will create the platform and you can do whatever you want on there. It's on y'all. We'll give you, it's like they'll create the platform, but they won't exactly fully control what you're doing.
100%. No, that's the exact position they got. And I mean, bro, they got tons of leverage. I mean, we know how tight their ecosystem is. So whenever they do decide to make a move in that space, it's gonna be seamless, bro. Like I can't wait for the day where I can use a pair of AirPods on their own with no device, no nothing. Like I can just walk
Shit.
out the house with my AirPods and like I can do anything I can do on my phone with my AirPods.
Shit.
Like that's where I want to be. On and I can see them doing that, like just on device, everything. I don't know if they need a camera on these boys or what, but like I see so many people with these all the time. I'm like, I don't like carrying my phone. I'm waiting for the next device. If it's glasses, I love what Meta. I mean, you put me on the Meta Ray Bans. Love those. I
Mm,
love that product. One of my favorite products. Like I'm ready
mhm.
to upgrade to the one with the screen in it. But I'm ready for the next compute platform in general because I'm tired of carrying my phone around. I get exhausted from looking
Yeah.
at it. I don't know how
Yeah.
you feel about it, but
Yeah.
I
No.
just mentally just get drained from it.
Yeah, I think you have a lot of self-awareness. I think that, there's a lot of people getting trained by their phones, but they are not aware of it. They're not seeing it. They're not feeling it exactly, but they are being overly stimulated by them, and they're being brought into these just not this good state of mind. My prediction for that the ear stuff is I would say it's telling me 6 years in my 6 years, so a significant time. They're definitely moving in that place because right now I can go out with my headphones and my Apple Watch, and I don't need my phone, and so but it's basic stuff. It's basic stuff. It's not, like, to the level that you're talking about. They're likely gonna need, more AI maturity, and then more AI integration, but at the speed of AI right now, which has been, it's been a long time coming, but it's picking up momentum. 2029 would be a year where, you could see AI doing a lot more useful tasks that take away the need for the interface or less or lightening the interface so that there's less things needed on the interface for us to see. And, we'll probably feel like interfaces were too cluttered. When we look back, we'll probably be like the interfaces were so cluttered. Our minds. So I think it's going to open space for us to free our minds. Yeah.
But yeah, but shifting gears since we're still on this AI topic, the other thing I wanted to bring up was I saw a headline. I think you saw it as well. OpenAI is in the process of closing a mega round. This is
Yeah.
$100 billion funding
Yeah. We
round,
can't miss
which
this.
is insane. And so I want to give a little bit of context on this. So they're finalizing some of their first commitments for this $100 billion round. SoftBank is expected to participate. They're expected to invest $30 billion over 3 installments. So they're going to do, I believe, 10 billion a year over the next 3 years, or whenever the time commitment starts. Amazon and Nvidia will also be investing tens of billions of dollars into this, as well as, of course, traditional VCs. Who have already invested in their earlier rounds, and so $100 billion round. You and I were talking about this before. Like, we've been on this in tech for 10 plus years, and I remember when Uber was. I don't know what your comparison would be, but I would say Uber was the one of the first companies in tech where I saw from a fundraising standpoint seemed like they could tap unlimited money. It was just at the time, it was just like Uber was out. pasting from a fundraising standpoint lift by a magnitude. Like it was just insane. Like it seemed like they could just raise money like that. They were rolling out in cities, outspending competitors and all across the globe, almost every city to win. Like it seemed like they just had the unlimited money tap. And now we fast forward 10, 12, 15 years later, and now you see OpenAI close at $100 billion round after they've already raised tens of billions of dollars already. It just puts in, I mean, it makes Uber look tiny as compared to that. I think Uber's market cap is not even $100 billion today. So it's like they're raising the entire market cap of a public company, which is kind of insane when you think about it. And so I don't know. What are your thoughts on these massive funding rounds and these massive evaluations in the private sector? Like, is this a, I know the word bubble gets thrown around, so I don't want to say a bubble, but is this a, I mean, are we seeing something early in terms of like what the markets are telling us, or I don't know, is private markets more efficient than the public markets? What do you think is going on where you can have a private company raise $100 billion? Doesn't that seem unprecedented?
It seems strange. It seems strange. I would say it's unbelievable, but I have to believe what I see. I have to believe what I'm seeing. These are facts. These are facts. So I have to believe what I'm seeing. It's strange. It's strange. And I think it's a huge investment into the future.
Hmm.
It's a extremely huge investment into the future. It's an unbelievable vision. It's an unbelievable vision. A big part of it is that even though it's software, it requires a ton of hardware to be able to execute. So that's where a lot of the money's coming into play, is that you just simply need tons of hardware. Sam has always been he's been the one that's been driving a lot of these. Yeah, in this case, we are talking about OpenAI. So I think Sam has been somebody who has been studying the game for a long time. Him being, a founder, and then also running YC for a while, studying startups, being around startups, seeing all the patterns, probably even knowing Travis Kalanick and others. He just has probably strong patterns on how it all goes, and he probably is just a master of the game. And I've heard that he's a really good deal maker as well, probably a good storyteller, and he just knows the dynamics, and he moves faster than almost everybody that I've seen. I love that about him. That's one thing I do love about him. You can't catch him. Can't catch him. You can't catch him. That's one of the things I think that founders need to have. I think even Elon hates that about him, like a brute force type guy. Just a monster, like brute forcing through everything. His visions are like all scattered everywhere. He has kids by multiple women. He's like all over the place, and he's just like pulling it all forward like this. Sam is like just like a rabbit. He's just like focused on one place, and he's just zooming forward. You can't catch him, and his momentum is. He has to be stopped. Honestly, that's the only way he'll be stopped. Like like somebody would have to step in and stop him. That's how quick he's moving. Like, how would he stop? Like, I honestly can't believe he hasn't stopped. What one man? Like, imagine if you went on this type of run.
Yeah. It's fast. It seems fast. He been doing this for almost a decade, but it seemed like it's
Yes.
overnight. That's what
Well,
it
that's what
seems like.
he has shown the value of consistency and momentum. This has been a long-term play that he's been working on for a long time, consistently, and he's showing us what happens when that momentum starts compounding. And I read an article from him that I like a lot. Let me see if I can find it. So for maybe, okay, there's an article that Sam wrote on productivity. He wrote it 8 years ago. So, of course, now this article seems very prescient because, you see that he's, one of the number one CEOs as far as like productivity, and also ChatGPT is a productivity tool. It's not social media. It's not a different type of tool, entertainment. It's focused on productivity. So I think one of the key things that he says a lot is compounding and momentum. And he's a living, breathing embodiment of both of those things, to the point where I just don't see how he gets slowed down. I don't know, because at some point it has to stop. Like, it has to stop. At some point, like, what's gonna happen? Like, you're just gonna keep building? Like, it's just gonna keep building and then justifying another 200, 300 million? Like, at some point, it has to stop. I just, because think about, like, at what point does it stop? Like, It's hard to say.
It's interesting looking back too. Like I'm thinking back on some of the emails that got leaked between Sam and Elon, where Elon was telling Sam that in order to even go into this market, it was going to require hundreds of billions of dollars. Like
Yes.
and if he wasn't willing to like go after that, then it was really no point. Because Elon was always very clear that the elephant in the room is Google, right? Like doesn't really matter what anybody else do. Google has the deepest word trust. They have the talent, they have the capabilities, they have everything. They have every single ingredient that it takes to dominate in that market. And so he told him straight up, like, you're gonna need a lot of money. And I think Sam underestimated it, but he quickly realized it's gonna take a lot of
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
He's been effective and efficient at getting the company the capital they need in order to maintain that distance between them and the competition. So it's interesting as a business nerd to just kind of see how he has navigated the landscape and stayed focused. Like you mentioned, he has a what I would call a concentrated focus versus Elon. He is distributedly focused on many different things, and Sam is not. Sam is highly focused on one thing that he's doing,
One
and
day.
it doesn't seem that he's taking his head up for nothing. So it's hard to beat that. But I've been bullish on them from a long time. I continue to ride that wave. I do think again, Claude and what Anthropic is doing is interesting. It's great. I think Grok is good too. But yeah, I think OpenAI is playing a different game. Yeah, Sam is a different founder.
Yeah, I know we're almost at the end of our show, but I just have to I just have to when does it stop though? Like he's literally so good at the game he's playing. This is the fact they're even contending with Google should never have even been a possibility. On himself thought it was impossible. He thought you
He did.
can't do this without me.
He did.
This is
Yeah, he said it.
how does this like 'cause okay, you get 100,000,000,000. Okay, cool. So what next? Is he just gonna is he so disciplined and focused that he'll be able to properly allocate that and it'll build on top and then will it justify another 200, 300? I mean, at what point? And if so, he's probably one of the best founders of all time. I mean, it's just he already
He
is
gotta
actually at
be.
this
He
point.
gotta be up there. He gotta be up there. I think their run rate is probably what, almost 20 billion now. It's a fascinating story, bro. It is a very, very fascinating story. I think the only way he stops is death, honestly.
Yeah,
And fortunately for Sam, and fortunately for us too, because
he's young.
we'll see this play out, right? Assuming we all stay healthy, stay alive. Sam is young. So I mean, we understand now at this age, like the advantage of just
Yeah.
compounding, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Over
Yeah.
a very long
Adds up.
period of time. And
Adds
so
up.
yeah, he just got he it's gonna be up. I think if he just continue to do what he's doing at this crazy pace, I mean, yeah, I can't see how they can't beat Google at whatever game they decide to compete against Google at, whatever that looks like. That's just my take. I've always felt like this about OpenAI. And I know I'm crazy for that take. People always be like, "What the hell are you
You
talking
should
about?" But I've
you
always
shouldn't
felt
you
that way.
you shouldn't be crazy because he's literally aiming to change the world. Like, this is not like I think people know like, they gotta really grasp how much money we're talking about here. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. If you, the listener, had some idea and you just started, working on it small by small, nobody was really, and then it just started building over time, and then it started snowballing, started getting bigger and bigger, and started and then you started pushing it, and you really started pushing it, and you started getting access to opportunities. You probably would you not take them, or would you continue to take them until literally the world says no, we can't give you anything else? And it seems like he's going, and he's going to keep going, and I guess if he keeps delivering what people want, then he's showing us a different game. So I'm really curious to see how it plays. I don't even think he knows. I think he's just running at this point. It's gone beyond what he initially planned. I think so. He's freestyling, but it's working. Like
It's
I don't
funny.
know
It's funny because he's kind of embodying. I mean, you and I both been following YC for a while, right? So we kind of
exactly.
like the context behind a founder matters, right? So he in some sense is really embodying everything that YC has been pushing out for a long time, but he's just doing that shit at a hundred time at 100x, right? It's
Yes.
everything that YC has embodied. It's just 100x, right? Like he took
Yeah.
that same framework
Yeah.
and just amplified it to another level. But it's a similar playbook.
How did Paul see this? Because Paul literally wrote articles about him 10 years ago when nobody cared about Sam. Paul literally wrote an article saying, if you drop Sam on the island, you come back a few years later, he'd be on top. How did he see this? Like, Paul needs to explain himself. He needs to really explain what he saw and what, like, so that we can see what he saw and try to take a little bit of that, whatever
It
we
seemed like
can.
Sam it seemed like Sam has a high threshold for pain and just, like, resilience. Like,
Yeah.
it
Okay.
seemed like that, which is, I think, a lot of the attributes that you need as a founder, but I think as we talked about it, like security as a layers, there's levels to resilience, there's levels
There is
to
levels.
pain threshold, you know what I'm saying? And it
Mhm.
seemed like whatever that level that Elon operate at, because it seemed like Elon has a similar characteristic
Very
where
high.
he could just take an immense amount of pain and pressure and it doesn't move him. It doesn't change his thoughts on how he sees things. It doesn't do nothing to him. Whereas for some people, they start to feel a little bit of pressure and you start doubting you know what I'm saying? It changes what you do. For them, it
It
doesn't
does.
do that. So that's my observation. Again, I'm not in PG's head, so I have no idea. I would love to see his explanation to it. But just as a third party observing it, it seemed like that's what Sam just is so fucking resilient that it seemed like he just can't be stopped. It doesn't matter what you tell him. It doesn't
Can't be
matter
stopped.
what the evidence.
Can't be
He
stopped.
just can't be stopped. He's so determined to fulfill the vision, and I love that as an entrepreneur. I mean, it's very inspiring for me. So
That's what
I
I'm
love
saying.
that.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, we can end on that. I just think that he's is people are even to this day are still underestimating what he's doing and what and how it's going to influence the next generation of founders coming up under him and after him. They have no idea. Like this is leaving. He's shocking the older guys. Bill Gates. People got to remember. Bill Gates is like 60 years old. Elon's in his 50s. You know, like these guys like they're old. Peter Thiel, is older, like in their 50s, like, Sachs and all these people like, that we know about. And these guys are in their 50s at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like Sam is early 40s. You know what I'm saying? If that, but he probably just turned in his early 40s. Like this is not normal. This is not normal. This is unprecedented. And he's showing them like, hey, look, like I'm a young guy on the block and I'm running stuff, and y'all can't slow me down. Y'all can't stop me, and I'm loving that. But yeah, we can end on that. But I love it, and I like that he's not trying to be like I'm the safety guy. He's not the I'm the safety guy. He's trying to usher in it. He's trying to usher in AI. He's trying to bring it in.
Yep, yep, totally agree. All right, well, we'll see y'all
Yeah.
on the next one.
All right.
One,